How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Spider-Man No Way Home and how it could potentially fix the one problem of Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And that problem is the fact that Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies, for some weird reason, tend to ignore Uncle Ben altogether. Obviously, there are some hints to Uncle Ben in both Homecoming and Far From Home, but the fact that it's just a hint is kind of weird because Uncle Ben is a really big part of Spider-Man's origin. And even though for Tom Holland's Spider-Man, people were happy that we didn't get to see Uncle Ben die for a third time, it is weird that he doesn't even mention it at all. A lot of people say that it's because the new Uncle Ben is Tony Stark, and that is true to some extent, but Uncle Ben is the reason that Peter starts using his powers for good. Peter was using his powers, selfishly. Uncle Ben dies and teaches Peter the lesson that he needs to use his powers so something like that doesn't happen again to someone else. That's the one thing that really bothers me about Tom Holland's movies. They just lack that one component that makes his character so much more tragic and so much more inspiring when you see him doing good, even though so many bad things have happened to him. And I feel like Spider-Man No Way Home could actually make the whole Uncle Ben storyline even more tragic and even more sad than Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. By having these two Spider-Men come in and ask Tom Holland Spider-Man about what happened to his Uncle Ben, it could be such a sore topic for him. It could be something that he buried down deep inside that he didn't want to talk about at all because it's too much for him. We could have that scene where he sort of breaks down in front of the other Spider-Man because, they were very open about what happened to Uncle Ben. They used his lessons, as they acted as Spider-Man. And he was a very big part of their stories, obviously. But if we can have a scene where Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are showing Tom Holland Spider-Man that he can't run away or change the subject anytime Uncle Ben is mentioned. Instead, he can embrace that and use the lessons that he taught him to keep being Spider-Man. Because as I've said before, I would like this movie to be about what it means to be Spider-Man. I would like, the other Spider-Man to show Tom Holland why do they even Spider-Man if in the end a lot of their friends and family get hurt. And funny enough, that is in the actual summary of this movie, like the official summary. As soon as I saw that wording, what it means to be Spider-Man, I was like, oh my god, it's gonna happen. Like, they're actually gonna have this type of storyline where the other Spider-Men are gonna teach freaking not Tobey Maguire. There's so many T's and A's. Tom Holland. Yes, that's his name. And so basically they can kind of retcon and explain why Uncle Ben wasn't mentioned in the first two movies. It's not because Tom was ignoring him. It's because he really didn't want to talk about it because, yeah, he's basically his father figure who passed away. And it was pretty much his fault. And as much as I love the MCU Spider-Man movies, I do think they are a little bit more lighthearted in general. I mean, Homecoming, it's basically just bouncing around from scene to scene with Peter having a fun time being Spider-Man. And then Far From Home is him, traveling and having a good time with his classmates. And now this movie, we're really going to get to see Peter at his lowest, and it's going to be really interesting, and it's going to be super emotional, especially if we can get any mention of Uncle Ben or have the other Spider-Man basically let Tom Holland Spider-Man open up about, this whole Spider-Man thing, because he's really going to have to question if it's even worth being Spider-Man. And I think it's in this movie that we're going to see Peter learn that main lesson of with great power comes great responsibility. Even though his life sucks, everyone knows he's Spider-Man, he can't necessarily run away from it. He's been burdened with this power. Even if he's able to get Doctor Strange's spell to work properly, he's not always going to have Doctor Strange there. He's not always going to have a magical wizard to solve his problems. And I think it could make for some funny scenes if we see, the variant Spider-Mans react to Tom Holland getting the lucky universe where he's able to interact with all these superheroes. And then these two other guys over here are like, we don't have any of that. We just live in like these pretty bland generic worlds where we're the only superhero. Or maybe there are other superheroes in their universe and they were one of the first. So yeah, this is something I really hope happens in this movie. Who knows if it will. Regardless, this movie looks freaking amazing. From the trailer alone, we've got Dr. Octopus, Green Goblin, Electro, Sandman, maybe the Lizard. So yeah, it looks pretty awesome. I cannot wait. Fingers crossed both Spider-Men are in it. Fingers crossed Uncle Ben maybe gets mentioned. There's no way Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man isn't going to mention his Uncle Ben, because I feel like of all three Spider-Men, Uncle Ben was probably the most present in his trilogy. We've had, obviously the origin with him, and then in part 2, he has the flashback, and then in part 3, we have the whole retcon where it's revealed Sandman actually killed Uncle Ben. So yeah, that's another link to Uncle Ben right there. Sandman kills Uncle Ben, and Sandman's in this movie potentially. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Don't forget to leave a like so more people can see this video. And yeah, that's enough out of me. I hope you have an amazing day. I'll see you next time.